William Branham was the most influential Pentecostal preacher in the world in these years. And that is the truth. And if you read these biographies, all of it really is true. And he was not the most influential for a day or two. He was this way for nearly a decade. Nearly a decade he was in this position.
I think the reason it's so difficult for historians who were never involved with this or know this history to start to piece this together, the later versions of William Branham's stage persona even preach sermons entitled "Why I Am Against Organized Religion," right? The mold that he created for his later stage persona, which is the one that would be remembered throughout history, is completely different than the version of William Branham that we have during this time. He is literally creating an organized religion. He's a bishop in Roy Davis's sect, and again, we're going to get into Davis in later episodes, but at this period of time, Davis is kind of out of the picture. He's just went to prison. He's off building the Klan, and likely he's silently working with Branham, but Branham himself, this is all going to his head. Now he could be the Pope instead of the bishop, right? So he's creating this new world that really doesn't have Davis in it. And, this will play out into some future episodes, but he's creating an organized religion, and it's the exact thing that he taught against in the later years. And I don't know about your sect or the Message, but in my sect, we were strongly against seminaries and training and teaching. It was supposed to be given by God through the prophet, and the ministers were supposed to be parrots of the prophet, basically. What we're having here is the polar opposite of what I would even consider the Message, and this was the Message at that time.
Right. What we do in the Message, right, is we blame Gordon Lindsay for all of this.
Right.
We say, look, Gordon Lindsay did all of this stuff against the prophet's wishes, but that's not true. No. Okay, so William Branham is wholeheartedly supporting this and going along with it and reaping all the benefits of it. It's not until time goes on and he has this falling out with Gordon Lindsay that he decides that all of this was terrible, right?
Yeah.
And so that we in the Message, we did think all of this was terrible, but William Branham didn't think all this was terrible at the time. He's the one teaching at this school. I mean, when you read these articles, all right, he's one of the seminarians, okay?
How can something be terrible when so much money is flowing through it?
I know, right? I mean, isn't all the money proof that God loves it, right? Like that. So this is we're going towards the prosperity gospel now, if you can hear that.
Yeah. Speaking of which, interesting side note that I've got to inject, because it blew my mind. My mind is blown. We were talking about, the prosperity gospel of today and all these ministers who say, God will give me an airplane. Just preach and just pray and believe and send me your money. God will give me an airplane. We used to laugh at that kind of thing because William Branham would never do this, right? According to the way we were taught. Yet we knew that William Branham told a guy to buy him an airplane.
Yeah,
cognitive
right.
dissonance. I knew this. I knew that William Branham told somebody to buy him an airplane. But it's just, this was the early formation of the prosperity gospel.
Right, and we have this way in the Message of doing such. So the same thing in our sect of the Message. We knew that William Branham told the Mosley brothers to buy him an airplane, right?
Yeah.
And the Mosley brothers kept that airplane around long after he died. But what we did is, instead of blaming William Branham for telling them to buy him an airplane, we blame the Mosley brothers, right? Oh, the Mosley brothers, they're crazy. They're out of their mind buying the prophet an airplane, William Branham. We would make fun of the Mosley brothers, but they just bought an airplane because William Branham asked him to.
Yeah.
And it's just like this. We blame Gordon Lindsay for doing all of this stuff, but he was just doing it to help, for William Branham. I mean, William Branham was they're going along, supporting and benefiting from all of this stuff. And these men are taking these beliefs far and wide. And here is just, one page, and there are multiples of pages of all of the revivals that they're having globally. And this is just from the space of 2 or 3 weeks. These people are having dozens and dozens of revivals every single month globally. Like here they mark on a map all the countries of the world where they're having revivals that month. Like these beliefs, these things they're doing are globally, right? If you look at this, they're in Canada, they're in the US, they're in Mexico, they're in Cuba, they're in Jamaica, South America, Argentina, Chile, Australia, Indonesia, the Philippines, Japan, India, Pakistan, South Africa, Kenya, Egypt, Ireland, Germany, Sweden. I mean, and that's just of the ones I'm making off the top of my head. On and on it goes. Finland, and they are global with this stuff. They are taking these beliefs to the whole world, right? And it's not just that, that they're going out and people are having healed and getting benefits and things like that, but they're taking a set of doctrines that had not been believed on in these groups or areas before, and specifically we'll talk about a little bit as we come down, but there is a whole new set of beliefs that these guys are spreading that they've learned through all of these seminaries that William Branham and Gordon Lindsay have created, and they're taking these practices out to the world. And it really is something. And what happens here, some of these men in this fellowship, they get so big, they get so popular, that they totally outgrow the need for denominations. And William Branham is one of the men in that category. A. Allen's another. Oral Roberts is another. They're so big, they've gained so much popularity. They have such a great amount of access to the people. They can fundraise directly from the people. They don't have to rely on the denominations for any sort of financial support anymore. And that makes a really big shift within Pentecostalism as a whole. And this starts the era of the mega preachers and the mega churches, right? It starts with setting off the era when you get a really popular preacher builds a really massive church, and they're pretty well independent from any other church body. And this sets all of that in motion, right?
Yeah. It did. Somewhere, I don't have it in front of me, but this thing became so big. I mean, just look at the map. William Branham was the pope of this thing. He's creating basically... You've got the Catholic Church, who's worldwide, and he's the Pope of the anti-Catholic Church worldwide. It became so big that it even had somewhat of its own banking system. The Voice of Healing magazine, towards the later years, was actually selling annuities for these ministers who joined in.
Yeah, and they're a very loose fellowship, right? Like it's not terribly command and control, but William Branham is in the senior position, and he has influenced the beliefs of all of these men.
Yeah.
And, because of what happened with William Branham in the later years of his life, the truth is most people who survived, in their ministries into the 60s and 70s, after William Branham's fall from grace, they really tried to downplay how important William Branham was, right? But William Branham was by far one of the most influential figures in Pentecostalism in the 1950s. And the healing revivals are what got him to that level, right? And, that's the exact same thing that lets William Branham be the keynote speaker at the 50th anniversary of the Azusa Street revivals, right? And here's the thing. At the exact same time that William Branham is keynote speaker at the Azusa Street revivals, look at some of the advertisements that are running in Voice of Healing. International Christian Fellowship Convention. This is Voice of Healing endorsed convention held at the Cable Tabernacle. Host pastor, the Reverend James Jones. Right. At the exact same time that William Branham is in this position, him and his organization are supporting Jim Jones, right? These are the things that are going on the fringes of this movement that, again, nobody owns, nobody claims responsibility for, right? But Jim Jones and figures like that are creeping in and circulating in this movement at this time.